Hey everyone, I just wanted to show you around my 3D printer and kind of show you how it works. So this is assuming that we've already sent the job over to the printer. I'm going to show you that live, but figured I'd take a little video in case we have technology issues during the call. So thank you to my lovely daughter who is behind the camera being my videographer today. Thank you, Jenna. So the first thing I'll show you is kind of the inside of the printer. So I'm just going to take the lid off here so you can kind of see what's going on. So inside the printer, if you kind of zoom in over in this area right here, that is what's called the filament. So the filament is the hard plastic that's on a reel that actually feeds into this line right here. And then when you feed it in, you actually push it through until it makes contact with this device right here. And as the printer is going, which you'll see here in a little bit, it actually pulls that filament through, superheats it up to like over 400 degrees, and then drips it down, and then it solidifies into the object as it's printing it. So I want you to kind of see the inside of the printer, and when you run out of filament, of course, you can just put more filament in there. Okay, so let's actually start the process of printing a job that is essentially waiting to be printed. So if you come on in here a little bit, so this is a little bit of a unique printer where I actually have to authenticate to get into it. It's actually talking to a server. So I put in my personal identification number. And you can see I've sent a couple of jobs over here to print. And we're going to pick this little hippo here. And if I click on that, I can just go ahead and say print. Now what's going to happen is it's starting to process the job and get it ready to be printed. And it opens the door automatically, and it actually tells you right here on the screen, go ahead and clean the glass and put glue on it. So we're going to do that. So I take this little glass plate out, which you can see has a lot of glue on it already. So I'm not going to do the cleaning right now so I can show you how it prints. But in order to successfully print the job, it needs to have a sticky surface in order to adhere. So when that first layer comes down, it needs to stick, or else it's going to slide around when it prints. So we'll just put a little glue on here. You can just use any common, Elmer's, whatever, stick glue. And you just want to really make sure you cover a good surface area, depending on the size of the print job. But I usually just kind of cover it all just to make sure. And then I'll just put the glass back in here. And then once I've done that, I can go ahead and close the door and say, start printing. Okay. Now when I hit start printing, it's going to do a couple things. It's going to calibrate. So if you want to come down here, we'll kind of zoom into the inside. And it's going to eventually raise this glass up, and it's going to calibrate to make sure that before it starts printing that it knows where essentially all the four corners are. So it's going to take just a second to do that. The very first print job you do in a while, if it hasn't done this in a while, it takes a few minutes to kind of think, and it also needs to heat up the heating element because it takes a while to get that sucker to 400 degrees. So if you look at the screen, it actually says that it's heating up the nozzle, and right now it's like 270, almost 300 degrees. Once it gets to about 400 or so, then it will start the process. So let's give that a second. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's starting to do the calibration process where it's moving the nozzle around, it's raising the glass, and it brings down this little sort of knob that it's going to, when it touches the glass, it knows, okay, that's the calibration point. So I know where the middle is. Now I'm going to check my printable area. So it should do that typically on all four corners. And it's done calibrating now. And if we look at the temperature, looks like we're at about 300 degrees. We're getting up there. It's going up there pretty fast. And when it gets to that point, it's going to lay down like a little test strip of filament to make sure it gets out all the gunk that's kind of been sitting in the nozzle for a while before it actually starts printing the job. So it looks like we're at about almost 400 degrees now. nozzle temperature. Okay, so it looks like, now if you look at the screen, it actually tells you a print time. So this says this printing is going to take about an hour, almost 2 hours time left. So we know that that's what's going to happen. So if you look at the printer, you can see it's starting to create the bottom layer of the hippo. It's kind of tough to see in there, but we know it's working because we can see the filament touching the glass. It's sticking to that glue. It's not moving around. And basically what it's doing is it's building from the bottom up. So the very bottom of the hippo is what it's going to start to print first, and then it just layers and layers and layers on top until it's completely finished with that process. So obviously you're not going to sit here and wait for 2 hours for this to print. So that is how you set the printer up and get ready to print. And at the end, I'll show you the finished product. All right, thank you very much.